NBA basketball fans, welcome back to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast. He's Marshall, I'm Chris, and we're here to talk some NBA hoops, obviously. Now, we are, I guess, the first round. I don't even know the plan. The stats don't count in the plan. I think that's kind of weird. But we've gone through the first two nights of the plan. We got, the first night with the Hornets and Pacers and, Wizards and Celtics didn't really get a good game. Last night we got two of them, especially the Warriors and Lakers. Tonight, of course, in about 2.5 hours, the Pacers and Wizards square off. And then, of course, tomorrow night, the Grizzlies and the Warriors. And then the real playoffs starts. So we are going to kind of discuss our thoughts on the plan and especially last night's game, which, like I said, was a really competitive game, came all the way down to LeBron hitting the shot. And then we'll preview the first round. Both sides of it, we're going to preview and predict what we, see happening in the first round. We won't take it all the way to the finals. We're just going to go first round all the way through. If this is your first time listening to the NBA Playoff Banter podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. However, you don't have to go to Rope-A-Dope Blog Talk right here and download the show directly. If you're listening to the browser and whatnot, you can find this show under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, really across the board. We're also part of the Grueling True Sports Podcast Network, which can be found in a whole lot of places. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. It's basketball, football, baseball, boxing, and everything in between. And one more thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV. The plans start as low as $69 a month. Simple pricing, no hidden fees, no annual contract. You can stream it anywhere on any device, and the cloud DVR is available. If you go up a notch to the choice package, you get a free year of HBO Max. That's AT&T TV. Okay, so last night, like I said, it was blowout central. On Tuesday, the Pacers buck 44 to 117, jumped on them quick. Celtics, beat up the Bullets, I'll say, the Wizards, 118 to 110. Tatum goes off for 50. Celtics kind of out of nowhere show some life. I thought they were going to get beat. We'll see if they show life in their playoff series. But last night, the Grizzlies, it looked like actually a blowout. I mean, they were up big on them early, but, it felt like they were up so big that they'd actually have to maybe get, back in the game by the third quarter or something and just wilt away the lead. But that was pretty quick. By half, they were definitely in the game. Grizzlies ended up, finishing it off 100-96. But the game last night between the Lakers and Golden State, the Warriors got off to a good start defensively the first half. I mean, 22-20 is what the Lakers scored. I mean, they were stymie. Now, you could say, they were off, their shots were off or whatever, but the defense that you saw, out of that Golden State squad really impressed me. Wiggins had a damn good night. Still only managed to get 3 rebounds, but that's Wiggins. What are you going to do? He had a damn good night, and he wasn't hitting from 3, so that's a good sign. He was playing good defense, on LeBron, making, 25 points. You could see, Davis got, but he had to shoot 24 times to get it. Bron, had his normal triple-double. Kuzma didn't do much, but when he was in there, he was getting some offensive rebounds, and he actually hit some decent buckets. Caruso got, a couple of clutch buckets or whatever. The Lakers turn it around and get back into the game. Bronny obviously hit a big shot to close things out. It was right at the end of the shot clock. I was pretty impressed on how Golden State came out in that game, Marshall.
Yeah, I wish Klay Thompson was on the court and not on the sidelines, but that
Well, you
sadly
wouldn't
won't
have been in the
happen.
playing game, though, that's for sure.
That is true. We probably would have had a much higher seed. And I did like that LeBron said in his vote that Curry was the MVP. So
I
it's
figured
me,
you'd like that.
it's me, LeBron, and probably Golden State Nation, and probably a couple other people voting for MVP. So for what it counts, I'll always, if LeBron's back in my opinion, I'll feel a little bit better about it. But but yes, I really thought, and we were just talking about this for our show, I thought the Golden State Warriors had a nice game plan because, and again, listen to ESPN, all the people who get paid a lot of money to break down basketball, they're not always right. And the big theme I'd heard throughout the week was how will the Lakers defend Curry? And I really thought, especially in the first quarter, that the Golden State really didn't force it to Curry. Like there was a couple of possessions where Curry was just chilling, and he actually becomes a really successful decoy because, as people know, if he does have the ball in his hands, a three can come up from anywhere, even against a double team. But just their overall game plan was just, I thought, really done nicely by Kerr. And also the fact that Poole, Toscano, Wiggins, like all three of those guys had a really nice game. And they did lose, but they had a nice halftime lead. They got kind of kicked in the teeth there in the third quarter, and they bounced back, and they lost by 3 because LeBron hit a LeBron-type dagger shot. But yeah, I mean, big picture, I know the Warriors, we probably won't be talking for them too much longer in this podcast for the next couple of weeks. But my last point, because again, I know that they're not a top team this year, but it was nice to see younger players continue to grow. Because if Klay does come back next year healthy off his Achilles, which is a complete 50-50 shot at best, seeing a guy like Poole develop and Wiggins, just not that he needs to develop, but maybe get more confidence, and that Toscano guy who I'm just loving as a good blue-collar player, it was
Great
encouraging.
player, like value-wise, and just his story of how he got in the NBA. I really like him.
Yeah. I've of all the games I watched this year, every time he stood out to me that he's always hustling, making the right play. He just seems to be kind of like a gritty six man off the bench kind of guy, and he got rewarded with a 2-year contract. So seeing those stories in sports always seem a lot of fun, and obviously that's a nice little financial security for him. So I hope he continues to grow. But realistically, I really thought the Lakers were going to smoke us. But as you said, Golden State came out, played good defense. But LeBron did hit a huge 3. The Warriors had kind of an oddly called timeout there at the end. But it is what it is. That means the Lakers move on with our new playing system to play the Suns, which really sucks for Phoenix. You finished a game behind Utah, who, if you had finished tied with them, you would be the 1 seed due to the fact they swept the Jazz 3-0. And you're the 2 seed, had a hell of a record this year, and now you get to play King James, Anthony Davis, and again, the last time the Lakers played the Suns, Anthony Davis dropped 39, and LeBron wasn't even on the court. So not exactly probably the team the Suns were cheering for. I bet the Suns probably wanted Curry, as weird as that is to say. But hey, the fact we're talking about these playing games is fun.
So they wanted the MVP instead. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. I mean, the sun can make people think crazy thoughts at times. And as you said, the other game of Memphis and the Spurs, the Grizzlies were up 32 to like 11. Like that game really probably shouldn't have been close as it was. But if you watch the first quarter, you probably would have taken a nap, gone for a run, and expect the game to be done. But if you just watch the second quarter, you're like, well, how the hell did Memphis ever get up 20? And that just kind of is the Memphis team. My quick little rant on this, I'll throw it back to you for the East. They used to be like the blue collar, grit and grind, like Memphis team. This team is not the same like Zebo, Tony Allen, Gasol, Conley team. This team has young guys like John Morant and Jaren Jackson III, who are talented basketball players, but this team's defensive identity is under the name of Dylan Brooks. and their half-court offense is absolutely atrocious. Memphis has the best fast break scoring offense in the NBA, or top 3 on a given week. But their half-court offense, man, it is tough to watch. That's always kind of, I guess, been maybe like second, third team just for fun. But it'll be really fun to see how they match up versus the Warriors, because the Warriors like to run too. But yeah, Memphis's half-court game is really what let the Spurs back in. The Spurs came up short and lost, but the Spurs had also lost 12 out of their past 14 coming into the play-in. So, yeah, we get a very fun media market matchup of Ja versus Curry, which will be good for ratings and should be a pretty entertaining game, Chris.
Yeah, Golden State right now looking at it, 3.5-point favorites. Just the way they've been playing down the stretch of this season, I do like Golden State to win that game. They obviously have some solid veteran players still that, even though even the guys, some of the guys you mentioned are still, play a lot of NBA basketball. Some of them played in the playoffs more, some of them haven't. Most of them haven't, I suppose. But yeah, I like Golden State in that one tonight. The Pacers and Wizards. Wizards are a 3.5-point favorite as well. How do you see this one, going? Because the Pacers, man, they just knocked. I mean, I know they only had like 6 or 7 wins down the stretch of the season, but Pacers look damn good in that game. Obviously, the Wizards didn't, but here they are. You think the Wizards in that one, or you think it might be a little bit of upset?
I'm going to take the Wizards. I think that, going into the end of the regular season, they finished 17-6. Like, that's a hell of a run for Washington to finish on. So I think Beal and Westbrook get it done. I do think Westbrook needs to shoot better, though. Near the end of the game against the Celtics, so I believe mid fourth quarter stat line, he was 4 out of 14. So for a dude who's had a tremendous season of triple doubles and a good all around game, I mean, with him having the ball in his hands so much as he does, Chris, you can't be shooting 4 or 14. Or, if you're cold, like, work on your assist, which you've been, dishing out all year. So I kind of think that a lot of pressure falls on his shoulders for better or worse. I think that him and Beal are the 2 best players on the court, and I think Beal will get his. But I think the X factor of Westbrook, which we talked about years ago when we were friends about Oklahoma City, I think that issue comes up again. If Westbrook is on, I think him and Beal are too much. If Westbrook is I'm going to jack up jump shots and brick them and kind of take control of the ball, then all of a sudden the Pacers are sitting pretty good. And clearly you got to give them a compliment, Chris, for how they played against Charlotte. But clearly with no Gordon Hayward and finishing the year really cold, that lingered into the playoffs really poorly. That was a pitiful performance, to put it nicely.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the one-game scenarios, too. And like you said, they were already struggling. Not that big of a surprise. But then again, I guess you could say the Celtics were struggling, too. They lost some talent, but they still had Tatum, and they just kind of one-game scenario or whatever. We are starting to see these arenas, open up more and more. This is actually from Mark Stein and NYT Sports Research. The Knicks have sold out their first 2 games at 15,000 capacity. Looking around the playoffs in the first round, 6 teams, the Knicks, Nets, Jazz, Mavericks, Sixers, and Suns, are projected to have first-round crowds of 10,000 plus. The Hawks, 9,500, the Heat, 9,000, and the Bucks, 9,000. So it's who knows in another month or so, because obviously the playoffs go, an extra month deeper than they normally would into July. By that time, and maybe not even by that time, in 2-3 weeks, the capacity may be completely full or whatever. So that's always nice. It will, as much as I appreciated the bubble because of, it allowed us to still have the season, right? And something to talk about and whatnot. So that was dope. And, it really only took me like one game to adjust to the bubble looking at it. I think casual fans had a much tougher time when it comes to all sports, really, of watching something without a crowd and without the energy and all that. I definitely heard a lot of people that are sports fans, but they maybe only focused on really loving one sport and they're casual, because a lot of people just watch the playoffs that are sports fans, right? They're just like, hey, this means something now. I don't want to wait for the whole season. I'll watch even baseball. For me, I pay attention to the Twins. If Sunday Night Baseball's on and it's a tie game past the seventh, I'll watch that. Hockey as well. I just don't have as much time to watch hockey during the winter because of the college football and pro football, or I'm sorry, college basketball and pro basketball. But it always is fun because the goaltenders can really cause a bunch of upsets and whatnot. But we're starting to feel that vibe come back, and even when it is half capacity, just having the crowds there and you can just hear it. There's been a couple of boxing events now, like probably like 6 or 7 since last November, that started to allow fans. And even ones that only had 4,000 or 5,000 people in it, you could just tell the crowd was so pumped. They sounded like 10 or 15 at a smaller arena. And obviously Canelo fought a couple of weeks ago in front of 70,000. So that vibe, the feeling, I think everybody's kind of feeling like, hey, we're really getting back. So that's kind of cool that they're allowing that, that we're finally here, especially with the vaccine. So that definitely adds it, and I think that'll help the casual fan base when they tune into a game. As funny as that sounds for me and you, it's it does make a difference when you really think about it. And I noticed that watching baseball mid-July, random game, it's quiet as hell, and so I can understand, because I hear a lot of people say it like at the bar too, like it's just not the same, I can't really watch it, or and I get it, some people just, it's a form of entertainment, they don't take it as serious as us, but it is nice knowing, but it's going to change the playoffs than last year in the NBA, because you the travel is back, in the home vibe, in the home court. Everybody knows their basket's better than the
other. Speaking of fans and home courts and things that fans say, I will say either the city of Boston was massively hammered a couple of nights ago, or they have a massive amount of confidence in their team, because the chanting "We want Brooklyn" chant at the end of the game against the Wizards just made me chuckle. And we're going to go over, I'm going to give you the series price of every series in Vegas, just so if you were to gamble on it, you would know like what you'd have to pay per team. And I just want you to know, Chris, that Vegas has the Nets as a 1,200 minus favorite, and the Celtics are plus 750. If you're not sure what that means that you would have to bet $1,200 to profit 100 and get 1,300 total back if the Nets win the series. And if you bet $100 on the Celtics to win the series, you would get $850 back total. So I do love fans' confidence, and I mean, there's always like the beat LA chant that like Dodger fans do and Clipper fans do, and I kind of get that from baseball and stuff, and certain teams hate teams, but it just made me laugh, like, because as a fan, do you really want KD, Harden, and Durant to walk into your arena? Yeah, but hey, you're freedom of speech, you're allowed to say what you want, but the we want Brooklyn chat was when Harden drops 40 and KD and Kyrie beat you all by 25, are you really going to still be chanting "We want Brooklyn"? Just I'd throw that in there, Chris. Yeah, minus 1,200. So I don't think Vegas is as gung-ho about the Celtics win the series as the Celtic fans are, my friend.
Yeah, and it's like you should have been saying we want Philly. You know what I mean? Like, let's lose this game. We saw some people lose the games down the stretch to duck the Lakers in the first round, which I don't have a problem with. I think that's quite smart, actually.
Uh-huh.
What's the point? I mean, a lot of people are, oh, why don't you just do it? It's like, yeah, but it's like, why not? Especially like a team like, even like Denver, or like Denver's not full strength, dude. Like, I think, I don't know. Some of that was a little funny. Obviously, the reason why the Clippers stand out is because ever since they put that team together last year, the billboards of this is our town, and they basically, and by the way, a lot of the so-called experts, who know more basketball than us, but sometimes just run away with some stuff. They were saying it too, like, no, this is the team to beat and all that. So, and obviously the bubble, played some significance in that, no doubt, and also COVID. And let's be honest, we're not out of the, if you get COVID and you don't get sick from it, okay, cool. But in the sports world, it doesn't matter if you feel good or not. If you test positive for COVID, guess what? You're not going to play. So, I hope that I'm starting to see some fighters and fighter trainers at fights not wearing a mask. And I'm like, hey, dude, just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't ever catch it. It means you're probably not going to feel the effects of it. And so I think people have to think that through sometimes, because you're like, whoa, dude, that you can still get it though. Like, that would suck to miss any time, or God forbid it spreads in your team and you guys are just sitting home feeling fine, but you're not being able to play. So I really hope that doesn't play into it too much. But speaking of odds, I saw this a couple of from BetOnline /AG, I think it is. Best odds to win a championship. The Nets 11-5, Lakers 4-1, Clippers 6-1, Jazz 7-1, 76ers 15-2, Bucks 9-1, Suns 14-1, Nuggets 28-1. Heat. The Heat are 35-1, and Mavericks were 40-1. So we do have some really interesting matchups.
Yes, we do.
We really do. And it's funny because now that we know the Lakers are the 7th seed, the lowest seed ever to win it was a 6th seed with the Houston Rockets in 95. So they would do something, unprecedented. And also, even though the crowds aren't going to be back 100% fully, that kind of helps the Lakers right now, in a sense, right? Because it's like, hey, I mean, it's a home crowd, but it's not that home, because they're going to obviously, well, I shouldn't say, I guess we don't know for a fact. I mean, Golden State could make some noise, and they could end up with getting home court someplace, but it's very unlikely that they're going to have any home court, obviously. But yeah, I'm excited, for the tip-off Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. Any other items you want to talk about? What do you feel about, real quick, what do you feel about the play-in? Last year they did the 8th spot, but they did basically the 9 had to beat the 8 twice, and they did it over a 3-game series. And if, once they won once, it was over. Or do you like the 10th team in there? Obviously, I think we can both agree, and a lot of people agree, besides the people that are, their teams are the worst or second worst or third worst right now. Overall, I really like what they did with the lottery system, where 40.1% is the top 3, or the bottom 3, I should say. Everyone gets the same percentage. And a lot of people can jump into that top 4. So I think on the back end, Marshall, that helps tanking, and it made the Timberwolves go, hey, we'd rather play our players and not tank. And sure, we're now the 6th worst team rather than the worst team, but it would have sucked to tank and then not get the pick. Then what would the media be saying locally? That we always talk about that. But what do you think of this vibe as far as the playing games? Because you always had some meaningful games at the end, but it does add that level of hey, there's something to watch in the last week of the season.
I like it, and I think it's just a trend that every other sport is doing. It probably would have been about 10 years ago where the NCAA March Madness added 4 teams. About 12 to 13 years ago, baseball added more teams. Hockey's been set for a while. Football's added more teams. I think every sport just enjoys having a higher number of playoff teams in general. Um, it gives more fan bases enjoyment of a season. And it also massively is a time to promote your sport and just cash in on TV ratings. So I think for better or worse, I think it's just kind of a trend that we've seen in every sport now. I mean, the fact baseball, football, and basketball have all added to their persona of more playoff games. So I think I don't have any issues with it, but I just think that it's another sport. Well, let's add more teams. Like that's more TV revenue and it's more positivity, or maybe it's another game a little kid can go see Ja Morant or Curry or LeBron. Like I don't think there's many negatives to it. I guess some people could say that the 7 seed should have to be involved in it. Like they've had a good enough year. Screw this. But I mean, besides that, I love it. I like it, and it provides us more games just in general for fans. I know that the games we've seen so far, not all have been the best, but there's also been some games just across sport here where some of the baseball playing games have been some of the best baseball games I've ever watched in my life as a baseball fan. So there could be games down the road where, like, and I thought the Lakers Golden State game was great last night, but maybe we have a game down the road where some guy drops 50 or it's a double overtime game. And that's one of those games you just kind of remember it get stuck in your head. So I like the idea.
Funny how a Duke player dropping 50 somehow didn't count, didn't even register on your. Weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the 7th seed in the West is like prime real estate. So it is a little funky for me, especially the way it worked out. And I would have said this anyway because before the Lakers even fell to that. Now, to me, if they would have been out, that would have been funky because they didn't play like shit down the stretch as a team that was fairly healthy. They were beat up and had 2 other guys out and then only 1 other guy. So I don't know. Some of that 7th seed, I'm not totally sure. And the main complaint with it has actually always been this with the NHL and the NBA is 16 teams, so half of the league makes it. You know, I understand some of that. It's kind of like some people look at it like 6-6 for the bowl games. It should be 8-4 and all that stuff. I understand some of that. It looks like there's going to be, an expansion up to 32 soon anyway. So you're actually adding, so it's like 18 teams have a chance. I get some of that idea. 20 teams, I should say. 20 teams now out of 30 teams that get in. Only 10 teams don't make the playoffs potentially. That is a little weird. So I get that part of it. But I think the combination, even if they change it where it is only the 8th spot, I'd rather have it and deal with the 7th. And to be honest with you, next year, being a greedy or selfish, I want my Timberwolves to have a chance at that 10 spot. So I could talk shit about it right now, Marshall. But next year, if we're the 10th spot, I'll be like, this is a great system. And this is another, I can talk all the smack I want, but I like it, and especially when you balance it out with the new way they did the lotto. I think that's dope, and it definitely. You only saw some teams that really, to be honest with you, I wouldn't say like Houston really isn't tanking, dude. They just lost a lot of their talent too. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like some of these teams just suck, dude. So it's like, well, dude, when you play that many. Sure, you got Wall or whatever, but it's the ones that, the last 20 games, no, we're just going to, or like New Orleans, no, we're going to shut you down, AD. Okay, you know what I mean? So that's where it's like, I don't know, but I think you'll always get a little bit of tanking, but at least it's like not so over the top, or even like baseball halfway through the season, farm sale, let's just screw this season. I don't like that either. So I can't sit here and complain about it too much, especially like with my Timberwolves. I feel like they got a shot at playing maybe the Spurs next year. So yeah, I'm happy there.
Well,
Go ahead.
You use the perfect word. Speaking of complaining, and like I said, I'll just kind of go along with the Vegas layout of odds here. But the first one laid out in the sports book is the Bucks versus Heat. And I think there's got to be some complaining, or whether it's being on Twitter, Facebook, to friends, to people in Milwaukee bars, of Milwaukee fans saying, you got to be shitting me. Like, really? we had another good year like the Bucks normally do, and you're now playing a team who last year owned your ass. You won one game, and that one game was a kind of it wasn't a fluke call, but there was some crazy shot there at the end. Like, you basically play a team that
That's
just
right. I forgot about
you.
that one. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think Middleton, Jackson hit a couple of threes, but that was it. So the initial series price, Heater plus 250. So bet 100, you get 350 back total. The Bucks are minus 300, so you got to bet $300 to win 100. I got to say, I don't quite get why this line is as big as this. I think last year the Heat were plus 300, so there's a little more respect from Vegas. And you can say that the Bucks have added Bledsoe and PJ Tucker, which clearly, I mean, those are very respectable names. PJ Tucker is kind of like a Draymond Green, a 5-tool glue guy that everyone loves to have. But big picture, Chris, and we don't need to go in depth in every series, but I think this is a fun one to start with just because it has potential to be entertaining or maybe quick again. I think this is fun. The underdog, again, ran them off the damn court last year, and they actually finished the year playing really good ball. Like, the Heat were kind of up and down this year, up and down. I believe they finished the month of, or at least their last 20 to 25 games, the Heat were looking anywhere from like 16-7 to 17-7. Like, the Heat are playing hot right now. So, I mean, I got it. Last year, my best friend's like, dude, bet the Heat, and I was a little gun shy. I'm not gun shy this year, and it might come back to bite me, but I gotta like the Heat. I know that every year is a different season, but Jimmy Butler had a hell of a year. Hero's been a little back on track. You got Bam. I just don't see. I think the wrong team is favored, and I will bet Miami again. I think that they're the better team. I think that last year does play somewhat of mental block. And my big point to you to make, which we harped on last year, was the Bucks coach, and that he is a great regular season coach, but is very boneheaded and never likes to really adapt the way his team plays in Budenholzer. And he's like, hey, we won in the regular season playing this way. Let's do it in the postseason. And that has consistently bit him in the butt. So I'm taking the Heat, taking the dog. I don't think that Budenholzer is going to change his style, and I think it comes back to bite them. So I will take the Heat again in 5, Chris. What does your gut say about this really fun series to start officially kicking off the, I guess you could say, the first round of NBA playoffs?
Well, I just looked at it. They're 16-4 down the stretch. 16-4 since April 16th. And you know what did it? And I just love how this turned out this way. What did it before they got on their streak? They had to get slapped around a little bit by the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just had to get slapped around a little bit. 119-111. Butler wasn't happy. He turned up, and there was like 6 technicals in the rematch. D'Lo got thrown out. For Christ's sake, Rubio got a technical in that game, and he never gets technicals. So yeah, it was getting spicy, and they just needed to get spicy, I guess. But that's what did it. The Timberwolves sparked them. And once Butler and in health obviously played, they never quite were healthy. And obviously Hero was not playing like one, right? He was playing like a sophomore slump, worried about Instagram models than hitting threes, and they just I don't know, they weren't really together, whether it's health or a couple players not playing up, to their level. And we all know once Jimmy gets in the playoffs, then all of a sudden he can hit threes. He didn't even barely take them this year, dude. He's like, screw it, I'm not going to take threes. Why take threes when I got all these 3-pointers around me? 3-point shooters, I should say. Now, what'd you say, 5? You said in 5?
I'm taking Heat in 5, just like last year.
Dude, this is what I love about Marshall. He stands his ground, and he's not afraid to be like, I mean, you said sweeper. I'm like, dude, sweep, seriously? No, sweep, dude. And it'll be like 4-1, though. You know, I do remember, and this all starts about, let me think, about 12 years ago or something like that, in that series with the Spurs in Cleveland. And you had seen enough, and you and I made a bet, and you were right. You were right. You stood your ground like, nah, dude. And I'm like, nah, Bronny's going to get one more game, dude. Nah, you can't hold Bronny down. And obviously, you know, they did. They clinched that mother effer down. And I've always liked that about you, Marshall. I will agree with Miami winning. But I do actually see this one going. I do actually think, like, I kind of feel like Milwaukee is basically in a lot of ways the underdog. I know that they're the 5-point favorite, and we just said all this stuff, but I do kind of feel like now that it's happened so many times in a row, and even hearing Giannis today or yesterday saying, I mean, it could happen again. Who knows? I mean, you just never know, and I hope it doesn't happen. It was just like, wow, yeah, this stuff's starting to catch up to them. But they did add to the team, and they got to play better than they did last year. So I'm going to actually take this one deeper. I'm going to go 7. I'm going to go Heat in 7. Mavericks, Clippers. Was this 7 games or 6 last year?
6. And
6. It looked like it was going to go 7, but it was 6. It was 6.
Yeah, right? And that game 6 was a beatdown.
Yeah. Massive
beatdown.
That's right, because it kind of did look like they were going to get beat, but they recovered enough. Where are we at now? I like the Clippers. In this one. I wouldn't doubt if it's 6. Yeah, I'll say 6, 5 or 6, something like that. But I like the Clippers in this one. I think people are kind of down on them overall, and I think they're going to go further than some people.
I watched a lot of Mavs this year. I actually bet a buddy of mine $100 that I didn't think the Mavs would make the playoffs this year, just because the way they started. I just didn't think they're a good team. I still don't think they're a good team.
Yeah.
I think the bottom of the West has dropped off a bit this year, so I gotta pay up. But I'm gonna stick with my number 5 again. I think that Luka wins 1, but I think last year the Mavericks were a better team just from watching, and just everything about them was better. Now
they were hotter too. That's
yeah.
For sure.
Luka just needs some help. Porzingis is back and forth, not always healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They say those guys have not really gelled a friendship, which I don't think necessarily is important. I do think that kind of sucks. Like, I guess they're massively different people. But, I mean, there's small stuff like that, where compared to, like, Clay and Curry, or, the better team chemistry, I think the better it is, whatever. But the Mavericks just have, for whatever reason, just have not had that great of a year. I know the record is okay, but your record is good because you have a top 5 player in basketball, arguably, who is magical. So, but I don't think he can have that much magic again. He could go off like crazy. But I'll take Clippers in 5. Clippers are minus $400 to win $100. The Mavericks are plus 320. So bet 100, you get 420 back. I think that series price is fair, but I will take Clippers in 5. Luka wins 1, but the Clippers got to be, I would assume, a little more mentally focused outside the bubble. Obviously, the bubble last year was perfect for the Heat, and it was opposite for the Clippers. They had some guys on the team with mental health and stress issues, which, again, that's regular life. A lot of people in our country have had to do so. That does affect athletes as well. But yeah, I think the Clippers come out a little more focused. They know the game plan, It's just stop Luka and make Porzingis and Hardaway. Like, I don't know what's going to go on. So yeah, did you say 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now this one's interesting, and I know I gave away a little bit of a tease here, Chris. But who do you think is favored to win the Nuggets and Blazers series in Vegas?
Judging, I'm going to say the Blazers. Only because I'm looking at who I'm going to pick them, and they're only a 1-point underdog on the road, game 1.
And you'd be correct. The Blazers are
Hey.
minus 130 to win the series, and the Nuggets are plus 110.
So this is 50-50. In boxing, that's a 50-50 fight.
100%. It surprises me a little bit, and I get the one I'm about to say are two different spectrums, but we have the unanimous MVP. Their team played well down the stretch. People love the offense Porter Jr. has. I don't quite see why that this is occurring. I'm not saying I would bet Denver, but you got Jokic, you got home court. I'm not saying I disagree, but it just surprises me with you have the MVP of the league and you finish the year with a better record. Is the Jamal Murray factor this big, Chris, or is it that the Trailblazers did finish the year off really hot? Because they're for the Trailblazers, they had 2 games where Memphis punked them in Rip City, and 2 nights later they went into Memphis and whooped Memphis's butt. And CJ McCollum was talking mad-ish on the court, as the kids would say. And from that point on, they got hot. So is it the Murray factor as to why the Nuggets are not the favorite, or the Trailblazers are super hot and Vegas is riding that wave, or a combination of both? Because this definitely surprised me. I would have assumed Nuggets would be the series favorite, even if it was small, going into this 7-game series.
Well, according to ESPN's Basketball Power Index, game 1, 54.8% in favor of Denver. But yeah, I think it is just. I just think it's just different once you get 7 games to focus on one team, and
Okay.
I just think that you'll be able to find little minor stuff. Not just find. I mean, you can't say Murray was going to repeat what he did last year, right? I mean, that was nuts. But
Yes.
Even if it's 83% of that, that'll be pretty nuts, So it's just having that player, and so many times, Marshall, they'd be down, right? And then all of a sudden they just come storming back. And you're right about Porter. That's what I think it is, though. That's what I think it is. And of course, Portland, when they get in these series, they're pretty good, and they got a closer, as we know. And although it didn't pay off and they got like a super high seed, they do have more defenders on the court now. I think that's, and now once you got a Covington, once you got some of these guys, and maybe just that guy. No, but you know what I mean? Like, sure. I think 7-game series now when you got Covington and the defensive is it wasn't actually, I think they were the highest scoring or second highest scoring. But they still didn't do well defensively, but it just goes back to that 7 games where you could focus in, and I think they have another part now that they hadn't in previous time. But that's just a second part to it. I'd say Murray 7 games, that's what really does it for me. So I'm going to pick them in 7. Portland in 7. I'll take Dame down the stretch in game 7.
Yeah, I think that name, he won't win the MVP this year, but he is the most savvy playoff player in this series. I will say I did watch Portland quite a bit at the start of this year, and I really thought that they did not look that good. But the way they've grown, and I've always loved Stotts as a coach, and I've said that for many podcasts, many years. He's a hell of a head coach. But the starting five of Portland for the past last 2 months of the year was like a plus 12 or plus 13 per 100 possessions, which is freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's just talking, and that those stats pretty much mean if these five guys were on the court for 100 minutes or 100 possessions, how good of a team are they? And a plus 12 or plus 13, 100%, that's like almost an unheard of number if you don't really get sabermetrics. But basically, I just know that that's like a legit crazy number, and that's what Portland's starting five has had. I will say they have always seemed to have issues with trying a new bench each year. It does seem like,
True.
Like one time is the Rodney Hood bench, or they always try to seem to have different bigs, and it's always
playing a big in general. They've had problems with bigs too. So.
Yeah, so I'm picking Dame. I hope they do win. I've always liked Lillard, and obviously McCollum. But yeah, I think that if Jokic is to prove himself, I think this series could be a huge stepping stone for his career. The guy gets a lot of love, and again, he does deserve it. His numbers this year were phenomenal. And I know losing Murray does suck, but it seems like almost every team at some point in their dynasties or runs, whatever, and I'm not saying that Nuggets are a dynasty, but during a peak time of your team being good, you have to suck it up and figure it out. This is a time for that. You have home court. You have
a deep
offense
team too. They're a deep team. They've been playing the system for a long time. They're a damn good team.
They are, and their coach knows them too. So I should say the coach has been with them for a long time. So yeah, I think that should be a really fun series. I will be with you, and I'll take Lillard in 7. Maybe he'll hit another walk-off shot. I was watching YouTube highlights this past week in class because we're past our testing point of the year, and it's crazy to think that Lillard has, I believe, this was a stat as of 2 years ago, but there's 6 shots that have ever buzzer beater shots have ever clinched a series, and Lillard has 2 of them. So whether it was the running across the court 3 against Houston or the wave goodbye to OKC, and I gotta say, Chris, every time I see a highlight, it pisses me off because. And you know me, I'm a guy that probably watches thousands of hours of sports every year on TV. My cable went out like literally for a 2-minute span for rain, and my group chat literally just said like Dame, like with 30 exclamation points. And that's literally the one time in my life where I've literally had power go out over a game, and I was so pissed because those are those moments where you just want to like run around your house like you're on fire. I missed it, and I've always seen the replays, but I always go back to my head. I'm like, really? The Dallas, Texas, you had to have your DirecTV cable go down for 2 minutes and miss one of the most epic NBA shots in the past since the year 2000.
Yeah, definitely.
So, oh well. But yeah, all right, so we're on the same page there.
So do you think the Nets can win this series in 3 games against Boston? Is that possible? Can they sweep them in 3 games and then they just say, you know what? We'll give you the revenue for the home court. Let's just move on past this series. Is that or is the crowd? Is Larry Bird? Is there a back surgery that we don't know about and that's why the crowd was chanting, "Bring on the Nets"?
We want Brooklyn. Well, you got them again. Minus 1,200. You'd have to bet $1,200. That is most people's paychecks or some. That's a good amount of money for a lot of Americans. $1,200. You have to bet $1,200 to win 100 for them to win the series. Could Tatum go off and win a game? Sure, but really the Celtics did not have that good of a year. They were 36-36, I believe. It's the first time they've been 500 in like a crazy amount of years. I think over 30. They're just not that good. And obviously you lose Smart. Not Smart. You lose Jaylen Brown. Not that they're like a joke of a team. Like they have pieces, but you're playing against a team who is just, if people are healthy, should just run them out the gym. I know that every team has highs and lows, but I'm pretty sure the only game that it was either Oklahoma City or Houston won or out of the year was against Boston. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Oklahoma City's like 22 game losing streak was broken by beating the Celtics. And I know that's just, again, a given night, but what the hell? Like, that team was on we're just going to play our young guys, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, you are too good, sit down. And the Celtics lost to them. And Tatum has been having issues this year, I guess, when people start talking ish to him and he misses a couple of shots, he doesn't put in the full effort defensively. Like, there's growing pains of being a younger player too. Like, all this stuff, I don't think the Nets have any issues. Because let's say you put KD on Tatum. Like, who's the next source of points income? Like,
Kemba.
Marcus Smart ain't going to drop 30.
Kemba can.
Kemba, you're right, Kemba could. But
let's not talk too much longer.
Yeah, all right, but I'll be a little aggressive, and I will say Nets in 4. I think they clean sweep them. I'll go Nets in 4.
I'm calling Nets in 3, dude. That's what I'm saying.
Throw in the towel.
No, I think it'll be screw it. I'll say they win one game. So we obviously don't know just yet. Do we feel like the Sixers or the Jazz are going to lose? I don't think the Sixers will, but the Jazz against your squad, Golden State, let's just say that's how it works out. What are your feelings there? And try to keep it tight because we're at 51-minute mark.
Okay. So you preface my boys and say keep it short. I see how you are, Chris. All right, I'll remember that.
We got hours and hours of Golden State material in the last 8 years.
Interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting one, they say. Okay. If Mitchell and Conley are not fully healthy, I think this is game on. I think that Steph and Draymond can make it a series. Just because I've watched a lot of Jazz of late, and Ingles has kind of been forced into a backup point guard role, and he's not a point guard at all. I actually kind of feel bad for the guy. Like, it's his job to bring the ball up the court, but you can just tell he's like, dude, like, WTF. Like, this is not my job. My job is to hit trail threes with Mitchell and Conley. And the Jazz, without Mitchell and Conley, like, they're a more pedestrian team. Now, you're still going to have Bogdanovich jack up threes. My boy from Niang, or my boy from Iowa State, Niang, can hit threes. Like, they're still a three-point heavy team.
Wonder if it's just Mitchell out. Wonder if they just Mitchell game 1 out, because he just started practicing for the first time since mid-April, and he said, it's yet to be determined. That's the goal, but there's no 100% chance. We don't even know if he's going to be there for game 1. Mitchell.
Yeah, so I think if it's no Mitchell, I think Golden State has a chance. I would still think that the Jazz offense here will overpower the Warriors. I think this is going to be a fun series to watch because it'll be very high scoring. But I think if the injuries limit the Jazz, I think Golden State can go punch for punch. Just because I like Kerr and what he's done, and I still can't believe how Quinn Snyder kind of let that one slip last year against the Nuggets. But if Mitchell and Conley are healthy, then we have a massive issue. I love my Golden State boys. But I can also be realistic. I think that we're in deep shit if those boys are back. If not, and I know it's kind of hard to give the 50-50 answers, but if the injuries linger for Conley and Donovan, I'll take Golden State in 7. If those boys are mildly healthy and they're playing after game 1, I think the Jazz would win in 5 or 6. I think a lot depends on those guys just because, and even though Mitchell sometimes can get a little shot hungry and shot heavy, Chris, I think he really helps everyone else adapt into their pieces. And because the Jazz are a great spot up 3-point shooting team, and Mitchell loves to drive the heck out the ball. So when you are losing a guy who can drive and penetrate, then that makes guys who are spot up 3-point shooters drive and penetrating. That's not their goal. So yes, I will say Curry in 7 if those guys are hurt. If not, the Golden State Warriors, in my opinion, don't have a chance.
If they win, it's Curry. If they lose, it's Golden State. Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
7 Curry. If they got their guys back, Golden State loses. Okay, but just to reiterate, I'm not even trying to bring the Timberwolves up. This is just,
Sure.
It's on a platter. It's literally on a platter. Back-to-back games without the guy we're talking about. Conley was there, but without the guy, Mitchell, the Timberwolves beat them back-to-back games. And they beat them cleanly. It wasn't a buzzer beater. Well, actually, one of them was near a buzzer beater, now I think about it. That's right, because the defensive player let Russell go chasing Towns, and Russell got like a layup with like a second left. But the Timberwolves sweeped them 3-0 this year. And the first game, Russell hit a pretty much close to a buzzer beater, full strength. So I'm right with you. If they don't have Mitchell healthy, I actually think Golden State will do it in 7. All right, 2 more left. The Lakers and the Suns. Now, not long ago, not even with Braun, right? They didn't have Braun in that game. It was like, all right, Suns, dude, this is the time to hold your ground. This is an important late season game. The Lakers the Lakers need it. They obviously needed to win those games. They finished 5-0, right? I think 5-0. Now they're 6-0 down the stretch, and most of that was without LeBron. This one's tough. This one brings me back. Here it goes again. Timberwolves, Lakers too. I bring that up because for like a bunch of 5 years in a row, it was always a major underdog. Couldn't get home court for the Timberwolves when we had KG and whatever. And all of a sudden, they finally got the 4th seed. But Shaq had been hurt that year, so they got the 4th seed, but the 5th seed was the Lakers. The Suns have been that young developing team until late last year. Chris Paul comes in, some other defensive guys come in, and all of a sudden they're second in the West. But then now they got the Lakers. How far do you think an much improved defense team can do it? Obviously, the key probably here is Anthony Davis in this series.
I think that the Suns are a more complete team. I think that offensively, defensively, like they've just played the most consistent basketball actually in the NBA all year. And I think that's going to lead them to getting some wins in the series. But the major, massive red flag, and I said this at the start of the show, was these teams played a couple of weeks ago, and the Lakers killed them, and there was no LeBron. So you have to come up with some way to defend Anthony Davis. I know that Ayton's continued to grow as a player, but he needs to turn into Hulk or do something, or you need to have a game plan because LeBron's going to be ready to go in playoff mode. And if Anthony Davis averages 30 points a game in the series, you're screwed. If you can contain him and rotate Ayton and Sarge, which I know is not exactly the most sexy lineup ever, maybe you got a chance. The AD thing, Chris, just scares me because I don't know how you slow that down. Again, it is such a tough beat for the Suns to have a marvelous year and then get stuck with LeBron and AD. But I just think the matchups are too much of an issue. I'll take Lakers in 6, but I will be cheering for the Suns. I think it would be an awesome story just for them to pull off an upset. Lakers in 6. I just think the AD thing plus LeBron like you say, matchups make fights. Like there's sometimes where a better boxer will fight someone different. Like the strategies can always determine things and make fights or games go differently compared to just what you see looking at a team individually. And so this obviously is not an ideal matchup for the Phoenix Suns. But maybe Booker and Chris Paul put on a show. Yeah, I'll quit repeating myself. Lakers in 6.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to do because there's times where you just don't. I would say 5, but Bronny's not back fully yet. He's still got to prove to me that he could do it for the full games and whatnot. It looks like right now he's starting out as a passer, and that's cool. Obviously, he's a great passer, one of the best passers of all time. But his aggressiveness is kind of going off how the game isn't. And, of course, you're going to have that naturally, but To me, I think he's doing it even more perfect. I mean, last night was a prime example. He barely even, shot the ball for quite a long time in that game. So I'm same with you. Now, in the Knicks, two teams, one team that barely is good or getting in the playoffs. It's been a long time. And in Atlanta, they had a nice little playoff run where they were, team basketball Atlanta and all that, where they didn't have a star, but they had a bunch of solid players, and they made a conference final and whatnot, and then they got LeBron. How do you see this one pulling out? I mean, I really like this series in Atlanta and played, pretty damn great down the stretch. They've won some games where I'm like, wow, okay, they're really coming together. They're a pretty deep team, especially in the, they got a lot of bigs. That's for damn sure. Collins might be a Timberwolf next year because they got so many bigs, or at least I'm hoping as a power forward. But in a trade, what's going to happen here? What's happening in this one to close out first round predictions? Atlanta in the New York Knickerbockers.
I will take defense over the Trae Young show. Again, we talked about this last. We've talked about this last.
Speaking of volume shooter.
Yeah, no shit. The Coach of the Year award, which we predicted would be between Tibbs and Monty Williams, and I predicted Tibbs. I predicted wrong. I'm happy I didn't bet that. But so I'm assuming Thibodeau got second place votes for Coach of the Year. I'll take what he's done with the Knicks over, even though the Atlanta Hawks had a nice season after they turned their coach around. They got a new one. I'm just going to take the Knicks. I think that your defense led you to an incredible season. And I know you haven't been in the playoffs forever, but it's not like the Hawks have a bunch of savvy playoff veterans either, I've only seen probably 5 or 6 Knicks games this year, but Julius Randle's pretty much become playing like a mini LeBron. I mean, dude's playing like 40, 38 minutes a night.
Everybody that left the Lakers out of those 2 years are all playing pretty good, dude.
Yeah. So I'm going to take the Knicks, and I will take the Knicks to win in. They're the dog, aren't they? Yes. Yeah, they're the home. I will take the Knicks to win in 6. I think the Knicks will win in Madison Square Garden, Game 6 to wrap it up 4-2. I just think it'd be a cool story. And I'm not a Knicks fan. I used to be with like John Starks.
Hold on, Houston, they don't have home court.
I
thought they finished 4th.
Oh,
yeah, they're 4th.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Then I will take. Oh hell, I'm still gonna take the Knicks in 6. It just won't be in Madison Square Garden then.
Right.
But yeah, I will take my bad on that. I will take the Knicks to win. I'm taking defense over offense, and I'm taking a better coach, and just a fun story continues. And just for basketball in general, the sport does better when the Knicks are good, just like the sport does better when the Lakers are good. So I don't expect to see a Knicks versus Lakers NBA Finals this year, but if we did, that would be, well, hell, that'd actually be a hell of a story to discuss if we get there. But yeah, Knicks in 6. What's your gut say, brother?
As boring as it sounds, yeah, I'm right there. I think in a weird way, I do want to find out which team, like beyond the 2 guys that lead the team, who are going to be the second, third, fourth scorers in the playoffs. And I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, defense, Tibbs, yeah, I'm gonna go with them 6-2 to be born. That's exactly what I had written down. So I'd like to disagree with you, but it's just not gonna happen. But yeah, if they went to the finals or even beat Philly, went to the conference finals, I would just light into the local media and what they thought of Tibbs. But yeah,
you always give me shit for asking questions to wrap up the show. But of the 9 years we've done this is probably the easiest one I've ever given you. Normally they're pretty hard, but this one is a subjective one, just in your own opinion. What would you say is your most excited series you're just looking to watch? Just you personally as a fan, you're most excited to watch blank series.
That's a good question. The one we just talked about. I'd say Philly and Milwaukee, or I'm sorry, Miami in Milwaukee. The one we just talked about, and let's see here. It's a tie between Denver and Portland, and Miami and Milwaukee.
Fair.
That's mine.
All right, and my two, I will agree with you on Miami and Milwaukee. I think that storyline just automatically builds itself, and I really want to see. And again, I know I'm more of a Steph guy than a Jokic hater. But again, dude, if you got the MVP and you've been called, if the whole sport media loves you, you got to find a way to win. Again, I no love or hate for Denver, but it's just you're the dog. You got home court, like that's some bulletin board material. And I think that this could give him a little more clout for his name. Like, all right, you're facing Lillard. You got your hands full, but let's see what y'all can do. And I know that there is no Murray, but I think that could be a really fun series to watch. I don't think, and even though we both picked Portland to win, Chris and I both picked Portland in 7. I don't think this is going to be a 4 to 5 game series, but I'm just intrigued by how Denver handles it without Murray and seeing what they can cook up. So yes, I think this is probably the most fun show my co-host and I have ever done in the 8 or 9 years we've done this NBA playoff show. Because normally in a regular NBA season, first round. I mean, him and I have done that. Okay, dude, I got.
It's only been 1 year. There's only been 1 year where we had that 3-7 game series or whatever.
Yeah, and that was like
that
was mid to that was like 15, 16ish, right? It's been a minute, so it is fun just to simply get rolling and actually have some really fun debates as to who's going to win a first round series. And again, for you Boston fans, you said you want Brooklyn. Let's see how that plays out, my friends. So, any last words, buddy?
No, sir.
Until then, enjoy basketball. Again, you got Wizards and Pacers tonight if you happen to listen to this podcast right away. And also, it is not LeBron. It is Stephen Curry against John Morant tomorrow night. And then the Heat and the Bucks start the first round NBA playoffs Saturday afternoon. That'll be a fun game to go to a sports bar or kick your feet up at home and watch. We always appreciate the support. We love it. And we will have plenty of fun NBA talk and fun first round talk this year. So make sure you tune in next week. The boys are out tonight. Peace.